The crystalline towers of Zerthal Prime reflected the binary sunset in shades of violet and gold as Verk stood before the most powerful being in the Andromeda sector. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of what he carried in his pocket. A simple tungsten ring, forged in the foundries of Earth, engraved with mathematical equations that had taken him 3 years to perfect. Queen Elsa of the Zerthalian Dominion was not what humanity had expected when first contact occurred. Standing nearly 8 feet tall, her chitinous exoskeleton shimmered with bioluminescent patterns that shifted with her emotions, currently displaying cool blues and silvers that indicated diplomatic formality. Her forearms were folded in a gesture that Verk's neural translator identified as polite interest, though her compound eyes, each containing thousands of individual lenses, focused on him with an intensity that made his skin prickle. Engineer Verk of Earth, Elsa's voice resonated through the chamber, produced not by vocal cords but by specialized tympanic membranes that could modulate frequencies across spectrums humans couldn't even hear. The translator in his ear converted it to something his brain could process. You requested this audience under protocols reserved for matters of stellar significance. The Dominion Council grows impatient. What breakthrough has humanity achieved that warrants my personal attention? Verk swallowed hard. 6 months ago, he'd been a nobody, a quantum communications engineer working on improving Ansible technology in a cramped laboratory on Mars. Then he'd solved it. The problem that had plagued faster-than-light communication for 2 centuries, signal degradation across quantum-entangled particles over distances exceeding 50 light-years. The Zerthalian Dominion controlled 70% of known space. Their empire spanned 12 galaxies, connected by a network of quantum relays that enabled instantaneous communication across their vast territories. But even their technology had limits. Beyond 50 light-years, messages became corrupted, delayed, or lost entirely in the quantum foam of spacetime. Verk had found a way to extend that range to 500 light-years. The implications were staggering. Exploration of distant galaxies, real-time coordination of fleets across unprecedented distances, scientific collaboration that could advance civilizations by millennia. The Dominion had been searching for this solution for 3,000 years. And Verk had cracked it using principles so elegantly simple that Elsa herself had called the mathematics hauntingly beautiful when he'd first transmitted the preliminary proofs. "Your Majesty," Verk began, his voice steadier than he felt, "I've completed the final prototype. The quantum coherence stabilizer works exactly as the equations predicted. I've successfully transmitted a signal to the Triangulum galaxy and received confirmation. 0 degradation, 0 latency beyond the standard quantum fluctuation baseline." The bioluminescent patterns on Elsa's carapace flared bright gold, surprise and excitement. The chamber's atmospheric processors hummed louder as her pheromone output increased, triggering ventilation adjustments. Around them, her royal guard shifted, their own exoskeletons flickering with reflected emotions. "Impossible," Elsa said, but her tone carried hope rather than denial. "We've tested 17 million theoretical models. None achieve stability beyond 70 light-years. That's because everyone was approaching quantum entanglement as a 2-particle problem," Verk explained, pulling out his datapad. "But it's not. It's a field phenomenon. When you treat the quantum foam itself as the medium and introduce harmonic resonance patterns across multiple entangled particles simultaneously." He displayed the equations, watching as Elsa's eyes processed the information faster than any human could. She was silent for exactly 43 seconds. Verk counted. "This is revolutionary," Elsa finally said, her voice softer, almost reverent. "Do you understand what you've given us, Verk? What you've given the galaxy?" "I have an idea," he replied. "The Dominion will of course compensate Earth generously. Name your price, technology exchanges, territorial rights. We can offer." I don't want compensation, Verk interrupted, immediately regretting the breach of protocol, but he pressed on. I want to give this to you specifically, your majesty, not to the Dominion, not to Earth, to you. The patterns on Elsa's exoskeleton shifted to deep purple, confusion mixed with caution. Explain your meaning, human. Our translators may be failing. This was it. The moment that would either change everything or end his career, possibly his life, in spectacular fashion. Verk reached into his pocket and withdrew the ring. It looked absurdly small in his palm, almost comically insignificant compared to the grandeur of the throne room. In human culture, he said carefully, when someone develops something of great value, when they create something that represents the culmination of their knowledge, their passion, their very essence, there's a tradition. We give it to the person who inspired it. He held out the ring. In the light of the binary suns, the engravings caught and reflected the illumination, the mathematical proofs seeming to glow with their own inner light. Every equation here, Verk continued, I developed while studying your people's existing quantum relay network. Your engineers' work over millennia gave me the foundation. But more than that, he paused, gathering courage. 3 years ago, you gave a lecture at the Galactic Scientific Congress. You said that the purpose of science wasn't domination or profit, it was understanding. You said that knowledge should be a bridge between civilizations, not a weapon. I remember, Elsa said quietly. I was there, in the audience. I was supposed to be presenting my preliminary work on Ansible improvements, minor stuff, incremental gains. But after your speech, I realized I'd been thinking too small. You inspired me to attempt the impossible. This ring, these equations, they're my attempt to build that bridge you talked about, between our species, between our worlds. Verk stepped forward and placed the ring on the platform before Elsa's throne. It looked even more insignificant there, dwarfed by the alien architecture. So yes, he said, meeting her multifaceted gaze. In a way, this is a proposal, not marriage, we're far too different for that, but a proposal of partnership, of shared purpose. I'm asking if you'll accept this gift not as a queen receiving tribute but as one scientist recognizing another, as one dreamer acknowledging another. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the atmospheric processors seemed to hold their breath. Then Elsa moved. Her 4 arms unfolded, and she descended from her throne with a grace that seemed impossible for her size. She picked up the ring with surprising delicacy, holding it between 2 digits while her eyes examined every facet, every engraved equation. You humans, she said, and Verk could have sworn he heard something like laughter in her voice, have the strangest courtship rituals in the known universe. Wait, what? Verk's brain stuttered. I didn't mean this isn't. Peace, Verk, Elsa interrupted, and now her bioluminescence had shifted to warm golds and soft pinks, colors his database identified as amusement and affection. I understand your intention, but you should know that in Zerthalian culture, when one presents a crafted object containing one's life's work to a royal, it is indeed considered a marriage proposal. Verk's face must have shown his panic because Elsa's patterns brightened further. However, she continued, I also understand human customs well enough to know this was not your meaning, though I confess, if it were, she trailed off, an almost thoughtful quality to her stance. There are worse fates than binding one's legacy to someone who sees the universe as you do. She placed the ring carefully on the smallest digit of her primary right hand. It fit perfectly. Verk had calculated the dimensions using publicly available biometric data, though he'd told himself it was just for proper scaling of the design. I accept your proposal, Engineer Verk, Elsa declared formally. Not as a marriage, but as something perhaps more profound, a partnership of minds, a collaboration between species, and who knows? Her patterns shifted to playful teals and greens. Perhaps our peoples will look back on this moment and say that this was when humanity and the Zerthalian dominion truly became one. I'd like that, Verk said softly. Then let us begin. Elsa gestured toward the laboratory complex visible through the crystal walls. We have a galaxy to connect, engineer, and I find myself curious what other impossibilities we might achieve together. As Verk followed the alien queen from the throne room, he noticed she kept looking at the ring on her hand, her bioluminescent pattern cycling through colors that his translator identified as wonder, pride, and something his human heart recognized even across the vast gulf of species: joy. Behind them, the binary suns set over Zerthal Prime, and somewhere in the quantum fabric of space, humanity's gift began weaving new connections across the stars, a bridge built not of metal or energy, but of understanding, respect, and the universal language of discovery that transcended all differences. The galaxy, neither knew yet, would never be the same.